Imagine standing at the base of a mountain. It looks impossible to climb. The peak seems unreachable, yet deep inside there's a fire, a whisper that says, "You were not made to stay at the bottom. You were made to rise." That voice is your spirit. And when you fuel that spirit, you unlock a power within you that no obstacle, no failure, and no fear can hold back. We often look for strength in the world around us, money, status, approval. But the truth is, the greatest strength is already inside you. Your spirit is like a flame. If you protect it, feed it, and nurture it, it becomes unstoppable. Fueling your spirit means developing the discipline to grow every single day. It means waking up with purpose, building habits that shape your character, and choosing focus over distraction. Small, consistent actions create massive breakthroughs. And here's the secret: your spirit doesn't grow in comfort. It grows in challenge. Every setback, every rejection, every closed door is not your enemy. It's your training ground. The struggles that try to break you are the very things that shape your power. When your spirit is strong, your potential is limitless. You begin to dream bigger, stand taller, and inspire others around you. You stop asking, "Can I do this?" And you start declaring, "I was made for this." There is a truth that is often overlooked in our modern world. Real strength never begins on the outside. It does not come first from wealth, education, or power. It begins in the deep places of the soul. Outer success, the kind that inspires others and leaves a lasting mark, is always the reflection of an inner life that has been cultivated with care. When the spirit is strong, the actions that flow from it are powerful. When the spirit is neglected, even the greatest achievements feel hollow. Think of a tree. Its beauty is not in the bark or the leaves, but in the unseen roots. If those roots are deep, the tree can withstand storms. If the roots are shallow, even the gentlest wind will topple it. In the same way, your inner strength, your character, your spirit, your discipline, is the root system that holds up every outer achievement in your life. We live in a culture that constantly tells us to polish the surface, to look successful, to project an image of strength. But history and experience teach us that image collapses quickly when the inner life is weak. There is an old saying, "You cannot light a fire in others unless there is fire in your own soul." That is the secret of true influence. Consider the story of a young leader who was given responsibility over many people. He was admired for his energy, his vision, and his charisma. But inside, he carried insecurities, unchecked habits, and a restless spirit. For a while, the crowds cheered. But when the pressures of leadership increased, he fell apart. His outer success was not anchored by inner strength. The collapse was devastating, not only for him, but for those who had trusted him. Now contrast that with the quiet, unseen labor of building a strong spirit. It rarely makes headlines, but it endures. When a person spends time cultivating humility, patience, and courage, the results are not immediately visible. Yet when storms come, and they always do, that hidden strength holds everything together. You may lose money, reputation, or opportunities, but if your spirit remains steady, you will rise again. There was once a teacher who said, "The greatest battles are not fought on stages or in stadiums, but in the silence of the heart." How true that is. The struggle to forgive, the decision to be honest when no one is watching, the choice to persevere when giving up seems easier. These are the victories that create true strength. And it is that strength that drives every lasting form of success. When we talk about fueling the spirit, we must talk about discipline. Discipline is not a word most people enjoy. It sounds heavy, even restrictive. But discipline, rightly understood, is not a chain that binds you. It is the fire that refines you. Without discipline, talent decays. Without discipline, passion burns out. Without discipline, potential remains only a dream. There is a simple story told about two men who set out to cut wood. The first man swung his axe with great energy all day, rarely stopping, convinced that constant effort was the key. The second man worked steadily, but every hour he paused to sharpen his axe. At the end of the day, the second man had cut far more wood. The difference was not strength, but discipline. One kept swinging without thought. The other understood that discipline sharpens effort. This is the way of the spirit. Many people keep moving, chasing, striving, but they never stop to sharpen their inner life. They exhaust themselves in endless activity, while the disciplined soul, who takes time to nurture strength within, accomplishes far more with less. Discipline is not glamorous. It is built in the ordinary rhythms of life, the quiet moments of reflection, the habit of gratitude, the daily practice of focus. These are not dramatic acts, but they create extraordinary power over time. A famous writer once said, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Habits shape the spirit, and the spirit shapes destiny. Think for a moment of a musician. She does not simply walk onto the stage and produce beauty. She practices for hours, day after day, until the discipline of her craft becomes second nature. The same principle applies to the spirit. If you want to be strong in moments of crisis, you must practice strength in the quiet, unseen moments. There is a story of a man who decided to train for a marathon. On the first day, he ran as hard as he could, but after only a short distance, he collapsed, gasping for air. Discouraged, he thought he was not cut out for such a challenge. But a friend told him, "You do not become a runner in a day. You become a runner by running a little each day." He took the advice. At first, it was painful and slow, but with discipline, his body adapted. Months later, he completed the marathon, not because he had sudden strength, but because discipline transformed him. So it is with the spirit. You may not feel strong today. You may even feel weak, distracted, or defeated. But if you commit yourself to the discipline of daily growth, choosing honesty, choosing patience, choosing courage, you will change. Slowly, perhaps invisibly at first, but over time, the transformation will be undeniable. There is another important truth: discipline must be rooted in love, not fear. Fear-driven discipline becomes harsh and brittle. But when discipline flows from love, love for life, love for purpose, love for growth, it becomes joyful. A gardener does not resent the work of tending soil and pulling weeds. He delights in the thought of the harvest to come. In the same way, the disciplined spirit is not burdened but liberated. Let me tell you a brief story from ancient times. A young warrior once asked his teacher, "How can I become great?" The teacher handed him a small lamp and said, "Protect this flame for 1 year, never letting it die." The warrior scoffed, thinking the task beneath him. But he obeyed. He carried the flame through storms, through nights of exhaustion, through times when he longed to give up. After a year, he returned with the lamp still burning. The teacher said, "Now you understand. Greatness is not in a single act of bravery, but in the daily discipline of keeping the flame alive." This is the essence of fueling your spirit. It is not about grand gestures, but about protecting and feeding the inner flame each day. If you tend to it, that flame will grow into a fire that cannot be extinguished. And that fire will drive every success in your life. The world will tell you to chase achievements, but the wiser path is to cultivate your spirit. Build your inner life with discipline, with truth, with resilience. Outer success will follow naturally, like fruit from a healthy tree. But even if success comes slowly, you will already possess the greater treasure, a spirit that cannot be shaken. As you think about your own journey, remember the words of an old proverb: "He who conquers others is strong, but he who conquers himself is mighty." The greatest victories are not in conquering lands, building empires, or gathering riches. They are in mastering the self, fueling the spirit, and living with discipline. And so, when you face the mountain ahead of you, do not be afraid. Strength does not come from the size of your muscles, but from the depth of your spirit. Fuel that spirit. Sharpen it with discipline. Protect the flame. For when the spirit is alive and disciplined, your potential has no limit. We live in a world that glorifies complexity. The busier your schedule, the more successful you must be. The louder the noise, the more important you must seem. Yet those who have truly shaped history often speak in whispers of a different kind of power. They understood that simplicity is not weakness. Simplicity is strength. It is clarity. It is focus. When life becomes cluttered with too many possessions, too many distractions, too many competing voices, the spirit becomes restless. Like a room filled with noise, there is no space to think, no air to breathe. But when simplicity enters, it is like opening a window. Suddenly, light pours in, and you can see clearly. There is a story of a farmer who loved his land. He was blessed with fertile soil and abundant harvests. But he became greedy, planting too many crops at once, cramming every inch of his fields. At first, it looked impressive, but soon the soil grew tired, weeds multiplied, and the harvest weakened. An old neighbor watched and said, "You are trying to grow everything, but in doing so, you are growing nothing." The lesson is clear. When we spread ourselves too thin, chasing every opportunity, we end up weak and exhausted. Simplicity allows us to focus, and focus multiplies strength. The wise have always known this. There is an ancient saying, "Better is a handful with peace than 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind." True power is not in grabbing everything you can, but in holding carefully to what matters most. Simplicity is not about owning nothing or retreating from the world. It is about freeing your spirit from what does not matter so you can give yourself fully to what does. It is about refusing the tyranny of distraction. In a time when we are pulled in 1,000 directions, simplicity is the act of saying yes to the essential and no to the trivial. Think of a sculptor. Before the masterpiece appears, the stone is rough and heavy. The sculptor does not add more stone. He removes what is unnecessary. With every strike of the chisel, the true form emerges. So it is with life. Greatness is not built by adding more, but by removing what does not belong. The disciplined simplicity of focus allows your true potential to be revealed. One teacher once said, "The ability to simplify means to eliminate the unnecessary so that the necessary may speak." How often do we silence the voice of purpose under layers of distraction? Simplicity is not the absence of richness. It is the unveiling of richness. It allows the spirit to breathe deeply and the heart to pursue what truly matters. Yet, simplicity alone is not enough. Life will still bring storms, losses, and moments when the path ahead seems impossible. It is here that faith becomes the great companion of the soul. Faith is not blind optimism. It is the steady trust that your journey has meaning, that your struggles are not wasted, and that strength can grow out of pain. There is a story of a young man who trained to be a blacksmith. His first task was to hold iron in the fire and hammer it again and again. Day after day, he burned his hands, sweated in the heat, and grew weary of the endless pounding. Finally, he asked the master, "Why must I suffer this every day?" The master replied, "Because the fire and hammering are not destroying the iron, they are shaping it." And so it is with the human spirit. Struggles are not meaningless. They are the very fires that shape resilience. Faith in the journey is the quiet conviction that even when you cannot see the whole path, the steps you are taking have purpose. A traveler in the desert once asked a guide, "How will I find my way in the darkness of night?" The guide pointed to the stars and said, "You may not see the road, but the stars will keep you true." Faith is like that. It does not always remove the darkness, but it gives direction through it. The greatest achievements are often born in seasons of struggle. A seed must first be buried in the dark soil before it can rise into the light. Without that burial, there is no growth. In the same way, faith transforms the darkness of difficulty into the womb of possibility. What looks like an ending is often the beginning of something greater. An old proverb declares, "Smooth seas never made skilled sailors." Without storms, we would never learn courage. Without setbacks, we would never discover perseverance. Faith tells us that the very waves that threaten to sink us are the ones teaching us how to sail. And once you have weathered storms, you are no longer afraid of them. You carry an inner strength that calm waters could never give. There was once a young woman who dreamed of becoming a writer. She faced rejection after rejection. Publishers turned her away, critics mocked her work, and even her family urged her to quit. Yet she kept writing, fueled by faith that her words mattered. Years later, her books touched millions of lives. What the world had called failure was simply preparation. Her faith in the journey turned struggle into strength. Simplicity and faith walk hand in hand. Simplicity clears the clutter so that faith can see more clearly. Faith endures the struggle so that simplicity does not collapse into despair. Together, they create a spirit that is focused, resilient, and unstoppable. Imagine your life as an arrow. If it is split into many directions, it will never reach its mark. But when you simplify, choosing one true aim, and when you have faith to keep pulling back the bowstring despite resistance, then the arrow flies with power. Focus without faith grows rigid. Faith without focus grows scattered. But when focus and faith unite, the spirit is unbreakable. A wise voice once said, "The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones." Simplicity chooses which stones to carry, and faith keeps lifting them when the body grows weary. Day by day, stone by stone, the impossible becomes possible. This is the paradox of the human journey. We are made strong not by holding on to everything, but by letting go of what does not matter. We rise not by avoiding struggle, but by walking faithfully through it. The world will measure success by what you accumulate, but your spirit knows that success is measured by what you release and how you endure. So clear the clutter. Simplify your focus, trust your journey, embrace the fire, for in that simplicity you will discover clarity, and in that faith you will discover strength. So today choose to fuel your spirit, protect your flame, feed it with discipline, courage, and hope, because when you fuel your spirit, you don't just live life, you rise above it. Fuel your spirit, and you will unlock your true potential.